Hey guys, my name is Red Nomster, and today I wanted to share a project I've been working on, which is making The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time in Halo Infinite's Forge mode. For those of you unaware, Forge is a map editing tool inside of Halo Infinite that allows players to build pretty much anything. In my last video, we explored my Toy Story project, a massive playable space set in Andy's room that makes the player feel like they're just another toy. In this video, we're going to be exploring Kokiri Forest, the iconic starting area from Ocarina of Time. Don't worry, if you've never played the old Zelda games, there's still plenty of cool stuff for you too. At the end of the day, this is Halo after all. I obviously updated the graphics compared to the 90s game quite a bit, and unlike my Toy Story project, this map is focused on puzzles and other scripted mechanics in an attempt to bring Zelda's gameplay into Halo for the first time. So without further ado, let's start exploring. Alright, we're just gonna hop into it. This is, of course, Link's treehouse. We have a nice little atmospheric room, beautiful sunlight coming in, as well as a, leafy foliage taking over. We have a little sink over here with a mirror that actually, has some reflections that are accurate to the room, which is really cool. This actually has a little water texture type of thing, little trick going on that makes it look like it's actually water. It's of course not. But neither is it inside of Zelda, so that's okay. His little bed that he wakes up in, little window, right, for Link to look out of in the morning. Little board over here, table, little potion, beautiful, as well as some food inside of a bowl. And we've got some pots over there, some logs, and the room is just tied together nicely, right? But I think, yeah, there's something missing. I can't quite put my finger on it. Oh, there you are. Yes, of course. So, like I said, this isn't just a build like my previous map, it's a showcase of stuff you can do that you couldn't really do before. And this, of course, if you haven't played Zelda, is a fairy named Navi, who's a little companion slash escort for you throughout the game, in a non-sexual way, of course. So if we walk outside and take a beautiful look around, alright, you don't really know what to do first because there's so much to look at, and we'll get to everything, but Navi will help us start. So as you can see, it says hold down B to activate, and if we do that, we can actually talk to Navi and she'll give us a hint about what to do, which is find the treasure, right? Not 100% accurate to what the actual Zelda game is, but we're getting there. Anyways, so we're going to say goodbye to Link's room. Very beautiful, very atmospheric, and we're going to just kind of hop into the world, right? So the first thing you'll notice is that the grass actually has this like glowing texture to it, and I'll show off how I did that trick later on. But first of all, like I said, this isn't just a build, this is a showcase of mechanics, so Link's treehouse actually has a climbable ladder with sound effects and everything. So you can actually get back up here in the actual way you do in the game if you wanted to, and explore the room yet again. So with Navi's quest of find the treasure in mind, let's go ahead and do what you actually do in Zelda Ocarina of Time, which is find the Kokiri Sword that's lost in the woods. Now, the first thing you'll notice as we walk around this corner is, damn, this map is beautiful. And the second thing you'll notice is that this tree house over here is blacked out. Now, there's a lot of buildings in this map that you can't enter. Not that I couldn't do it or there's not enough resources. I easily could. I was just kind of getting bored of building interiors that were just like barrels and tables and stuff. I did build Link's treehouse as well as the Kokiri shop, which are the most intriguing things to see because they have custom items and stuff, but we'll get to those later. So this right here is, of course, the first puzzle of the game, which is this really terrible cereal box maze, as well as this little hole that you climb through, or crawl through rather, which actually has, similar to the ladder, a scripted animation where you actually sink into the ground and make your way through the hole, just like you do in Zelda. And this is actually what is known as the rolling rock puzzle, or at least that's what I call it. So of course, the rolling rock puzzle pretty much is what the name implies. There's a rock that rolls around, and it can actually kill you, but for the purpose of this video, we're going to avoid it. A nice little detail is that the little cubby holes that you can hide from the rock can actually have grass that's grown, as opposed to here where, the grass is all trampled and whatnot. But yeah, so the rock will keep on rolling around. Beautiful, it's an actual rock. So the smoothness of the loop is pretty awkward because, the rock isn't perfectly round, so the math is all RNG. But of course, the Kokiri Sword is what we know in Halo as the energy sword, so I can go ahead and pick it up, watch the rock roll around a little bit more, and as you can see, one of the cool things about this is that picking up the energy sword actually updates Navi's quest, which is escape the level now. So we can, go ahead and do that. Run over here. Back to this little area. I also forgot to mention, beautiful little rupee. Little blue rupee sitting in the corner. Just aesthetically, of course, for now, but It's just a concept to showcase the cool stuff you can build in terms of models and whatnot. So one other cool thing I wanted to point out is that Halo Infinite Forge, you can't rescale the player's collision box, but what you can do is rescale objects. And I rescaled this tree so large that the tree trunk part of it has awkward collision that allows you to sort of walk through it, and it creates the illusion that you're closer to the ground simply by making it so that the ground is closer to your head. Anyways, let's go ahead and backtrack through this iconic maze and take a look at the rest of Kokiri Forest. God damn, it's so beautiful. Anyways, we have some logs over here, which are strapped together with rope, of course. We've got a pretty little flower, some rocks looking over a nice vista. And one of the biggest focal points of this map, I'd have to say, as well as the original Zelda Kokiri Forest, is this beautiful little pond over here. Now, take a look at how delicious it is. And take a step back and realize there is no water in Halo Infinite's Forge mode. This is all an illusion crafted from a bunch of different materials and effects and whatnot. Please add water, 343. It would make my life a lot easier. This thing's probably tanking 20 FPS just because I'm using so many things to sell the effect. But as you can see, I think it works quite well. Right, we've got the waterfall, we've got, the realism of Navi annoyingly in the way, so you can't actually do the game. Anyways, we even have fish, but until you take a closer look, it's just little, effect that's rotating in circles. We do have seaweed here that's animated, looking beautiful. We've got some light rays from water to kind of sell the effect. I think it looks really good. Of course, it's not actual water, so we can just stand on it. I could make it so that if you're stepping on this area, it makes a constant splash sound effect, which I think would sell it too, but for the purpose of this video, it doesn't really do much. Anyways, we've got this waterfall, which is of course just some more effects, and this little water splash effect, which is the only effect I took from the water category when building this beautiful little pond. Might take a closer look at this later, but for now, let's go ahead and move on with the tour. Oh wait, there's also this little current. Is so beautiful because that's where, the water is going, so just wanted to kind of showcase that a little bit. Anyways, and can we please take a second to look at how beautiful Kokiri shop is? Oh my goodness, the exterior is fantastic, the interior even has custom models from the game itself that I made out of freaking dry erase markers, basically. But of course, we've got the Deku nut, we've got a stick that even has leaf on it, right? A little leaf hanging off, just like the game. The Deku shield, which even has the symbolism from the Deku shield, right? Imprinted on top of it, which I think, cool little addition there. Whatever the hell this item is, I don't remember. I think you can throw it at people or stuff. I can't quite remember. It's been too long. Of course, some arrows and the iconic Zelda hearts that you can purchase. Now, this interior is pretty simple, of course, but that is how it appears in the game, so that's how I built it to the most, extent of my ability. Now, leaving Kokiri's shop, we have this little nook and cranny over here, which is a little bit more calm, right? It's another little pond area, but there's not a whole lot going on, mainly because there's not a waterfall with fish and whatnot, and, the added details of that. This little house is pretty unfinished, if I do say so myself. There's probably more I would add to it if I was going to release this map publicly in November, if it does transfer over. Of course, I'd build the interiors of all these buildings on top of add, a more fluid detail to that. This building, though, on the other hand, again, doesn't have an interior, but does have an exterior that's functional, just like the original Zelda game. This little staircase is carved into the tree itself, and then leads to this little bridge, which, overlooks the rest of Kokiri Forest. So, as you can see, we can walk around along this dangerous-looking bridge. We're missing a few floorboards. Some floorboards are broken. If that's what you call them in a bridge, I'm not entirely sure. And, we can even look at the pond, looking great. Look over here at Link's treehouse through the sun rays. Oh my gosh. Whimsical, if I might add. Look at that. Look at that. Oh, detail. Anyways, let's go ahead and take a look at the only corner we haven't really showed off yet, which is the entrance to the Lost Woods. So, let's hop down here, walk past this building again. No interior, but has this nice little wrappage of foliage on the outside. And there's also a cool little detail that not many people would care about, but I do. Is there's this tiny little ray of light that's making its way through the leaves up there. So I thought I'd put the detail of adding a little flower that's sprouting in the sunlight. Add some detail. Anyways, let's go ahead and look over here. I didn't build a climbing thing like there is in the game here, so you can just mantle it, YOLO. Better look at the flower there. Now right up here is probably the best view of Kokiri Forest that I've made. You can see pretty much everything, right? You can see where the rock puzzle was from. You can see Link's treehouse, the bridge, the pond right beneath us, as well as the skewer that spawns on Behemoth down below. Now this little area over here is what's known as the entrance to the Lost Woods. Now to preface, there is no editing or fading in post going on during this transition. This is quite literally what it looks like in the game. And the Lost Woods in and of itself is essentially just this sheltered area from the rest of the world that has various paths that you can go down to navigate through the Lost Woods. All with these like dark tunnels that sort of, lead to areas of the unknown. In this case, I built a little area over here. Again, there's no editing going on. This is just in-game. And it leads to this little area where traditionally there would be a skull kid up here, and you would stand here and play the ocarina for them and whatnot. The massive scope for the end game of this map would actually be to model out the skull kids, just like I modeled out the items in the Kokiri shop. But for now, we just have this cool little light ray proof of concept that, continues throughout the Lost Woods. But let's go ahead and head back to Kokiri Forest. Now this transition right here, though, look at this. Oh, hello everybody. What's up, Navi? Now that about sums it up for the walkthrough of this map as far as the build is concerned. Obviously, there's a lot to do to make this a playable space as well as a fully functional puzzle map. Now this section of the video is for all the nerds out there who want to take a closer look behind the scenes. So we're going to take a look in edit mode at some illusions via lighting or effects or even just the plain old script brains and whatnot. Don't worry, I'm not going to do a full tutorial and bore all of you guys. I'm just going to take a look at the scripts if you want to take a look at it and explain the things in layman's terms. That goes for everything, not just the scripts. So over here, crawling, right? Very simple concept. There's an invisible switch, and when it's pressed, it activates this script brain. And this basically tells the game what to do when it's pressed. So when you interact with this object, the invisible switch, it moves this object, aka the player, to this object, the pointer. And then once that's done, it moves the player again to the next pointer, and so on and so forth until the keyframed animation is complete. Now these arrows down here are what the player is being moved to. It moves to this one, then this one, then this one, all the way to the end, and that is when the player's weapon is raised and lowered and whatnot as well. For climbing the ladder, it's a little bit more complicated. As you can see, we're going vertical, which isn't the issue. The issue is that I added sound effects, which makes the script a little bit more complicated. As you can see, it's the exact same script, but instead of just moving the object, aka the player, to the pointers, I'm also setting an object 3D audio loop, as well as stopping the object 3D audio loop every single time I go on another rung of the ladder. Now over here is one of the more complicated parts, right? We have Navi. So Navi is actually comprised of 3 different effects. This glowing effect, this half circle effect that goes in and out, as well as this lens flare effect, which all combine to create Navi, as well as what you can probably hear, this Forerunner insect swarm sound effect, or particle effect rather, that has a sound effect of what I think sounds close to what Navi would sound like. And this over here is the script brain for Navi, so it's a little bit more complicated. Basically what it's saying is we're going to take one of these pieces of Navi, do all this heckin' math, and then make it so it follows the player. I did the same thing for each object that Navi is comprised of, simply because I didn't really think there was a way to do it otherwise, and also have it have smooth movement. In this case, I'm not using velocity or anything, so if you're interested in that concept, this is the way I did it. So let's go ahead and take a look at some illusions, right? The pond is a very big one that I think a lot of people might want to know how to build. For instance, if we click on it, it'll say glass transparent. This is just a giant sheet of glass that essentially creates this dark layer, which makes anything underneath the layer dark, and then anything above it is not dark, obviously, just like water, and it even creates the illusion of a shoreline and whatnot. But of course, the glass isn't the only thing making the effect of water. There's a bunch of combination of different things. So the next thing we'll look at, which I think is the thing that helps sell it the most, is lights with custom gobos. So this is what I'm talking about. You see that shape? That is simply just a light that's shining down, meticulously placed so it lines up with the water, and it has a gobo on it. Instead of it looking like water, we can make it look like blinds, right? Or clouds. Obviously, caustic large slow just makes it look like water. That's actually the exact same thing that I did for the illusion with the grass, right? So if you take a look at the grass, it has this clean glowing effect that just makes it look as if it has motion and life, even though it doesn't. If we take a look at grass that doesn't have that, for instance this, it's very empty and doesn't have any animation whatsoever. So this is what I think looks more like Zelda. This just looks like trash. But as you can see, if we look from a top-down view, we can actually see that same light effect. For instance, right here. You know, right? So if you're looking to make grass that actually looks good, you know, I basically also did it like this too. I doubled up on all the grass just so it was thicker, and then I put light on it. Looks fantastic. Moving back to the pond, I'm just going to go ahead and delete things at random. Get rid of the grass. We have some plants in there, as well as, you know, this rock. The seaweed in the pond is actually just a larch tree that's scaled down and has some wind on it. The fish is just a Covenant swirl effect with a couple particles turned off, but it creates this little foggy swirl of particles that I think looks sort of like fish and kind of fade in, fade out, and move and whatnot. We also have, you know, energy barriers, which creates this little blue ripple effect. Up here, you know, we've got various different things like plasma beams, some vent that sort of goes in and out for steam. So a bigger Covenant air energy beam. Down here where the splashes are, we actually have, you know, splashes. And then we have this little Forerunner energy spiral, which creates this little entrance for the water, which I think looks pretty good. I even have a few little Forerunner energy spirals, which creates this little distortion effect, which adds a little bit of depth to the water, as you can see right here. Makes it look like it has a little bit more motion. It's not the biggest difference, but I think it's something that worth mentioning. And at the end of the day, all this mess right here is how you create realistic water in Halo, so good luck with that. Next, let's go ahead and take a look at the Lost Woods, which also uses effects to create a seamless transition. So for the Lost Woods, there's a couple things to mention, right? Obviously, there is a fake entrance and then a real entrance that actually connects to that area you see in the Beyond. So for the fake entrance and the real entrance, they actually work the same way, in which when you get close and far away, it dynamically darkens the screen. It does this using an FX called Slip Space Idle. So if we go ahead and find it here, somewhere, ta-da! It's this black hole right here that you can move around, has this little distortion effect, but when you get close enough to it, it actually darkens your screen to complete blackness. And this can be done through walls. Right, the opaque design is fake, so I can actually delete it, and you can see it's just a static wall behind it. But this is actually a real wall, where if I delete it, it looks like this. And it's actually completely unnecessary to the transition. The FX blackens the screen entirely, but the point of that object is to obviously make it darkened and make it look dark and mysterious, as if, you know, you're entering a tunnel and whatnot. But of course, I'm achieving this effect simply by placing an object that you can walk through that also has a black texture, which in this case is a giant yellow-black diamond decal. It just looks like this. Obviously, decals are meant to be like signs that you place on buildings and stuff, but you can move through it. Now, the entryway to the Lost Woods actually just has nothing behind it and uses teleportation. As you can see, our grenade flies through and blows up in the distance. And this is what it looks like without that darkening FX from the black hole. Pretty bad, right? Just looks like teleportation. So yeah, that little FX actually sells the effect quite well. And if you're curious, this is what Kokiri Forest looks like when you zoom out. But that's all I really have for this video, guys. So if you enjoyed, please leave a like and share with your friends. It helps out a lot. I will be making more projects and in more detail soon as Forge comes out in November. So subscribe for more, and I'll catch you next time. Peace.